My name is Rolf Williams and I'm third generation Jerrol's. Welcome to our video history tour. This is a picture of Gerald's in the very beginning in 1947. You'll notice the sign over the door. That's the same sign we have today. And that theory for your convenience is the same theory we operate on. And my parents and my grandparents always emphasized it's for your convenience, the clients, not for our convenience, the owners. What we were was an early day 7-Eleven. So we had, in fact, we didn't even have hot food. We had donuts and coffee and sandwiches and pies. And the local ladies around the neighborhood would bring Grandma and Grandpa pies. They would cut the pies up and sell them. So every morning the neighborhood women would bring in the pies for Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma took care of all of what we called sundry items, which would have been the magazines and the aspirin and things like that. And Grandpa took care of all the food. We were, like I said, an early 7-Eleven. Not that we were part of 7-Eleven, but that was the concept. And you'll notice in the picture that there really is, well, there is no parking except on the street. And really the only cars you see are delivery vehicles. And you'll see their house was right up against the wall of Jerrol's. I love this top picture because it has the rodeo poster in the door, and we've yet to figure out who the young man is off to the side, but someday we'll figure it out. And literally, in their front yard, they built the store. It was 18 by 30 feet. And it would have been right here. This would have been the entrance. And the building was as big as the sign is over our door today. In fact, that's the exact same sign that was here in 1947. And this street would have been Highway 10, which was the main road from Seattle to Spokane. Let me show you some more of the pictures. These are some early, well, these were the newspaper clippings of the ads from the day we opened up on June 21st, 1947. We were actually open in those days from something like 6 in the morning till 11 at night. Crazy hours for 1947. This is what the original building looked like. This is a picture taken after it had been added on once, because you can see the floor is in two different tiles. That's sort of a trademark of my grandfather's, which we'll talk about later. This would have been taken from the front door to the north, and then this picture, you can see the people sitting at the food bar, is taken from the back of the store towards Highway 10 or University Way today. Let me show you the popcorn machine. We even still have it. This poor guy has been here since 1947, like 67 years. He's outlasted everyone in my family. In the early 50s, the automobiles started to take over America, and at that point, Grandma and Grandpa were approached by Mobile Corporation to lease the corner where the store was located to turn it into a gas station. And they gave Grandpa enough money where he was actually able to dismantle his house and the store and build a new store in the location where the house was. And so here you can see where Grandpa is actually dismantling his house. And I love this particular picture because it's kind of got that Route 66 highway sign shadow on the road. This is a picture of where Grandpa is actually building the new store. So you can see all the rock work and so forth, and then you can see the original store in the background. Let me show you where that rock work is. So the rock you see is the rock you see up on this wall, and it was actually taken from Robinson Canyon that you can kind of see way over there. This is the window you see in that picture. There's even some of that rock work inside the store now. This used to be the exterior wall of that second Jerrol's building. This is what the building looked like when Grandpa had completed it. And this is what the inside of it looked like. You'll notice that there's the counter for people to sit at, and there's booths over against the side. The popcorn machine is up in the top left there. And notice the pole and the vent that's up in the top right-hand corner. Let me show you where those are located. This is that pole you're seeing. So right here would have been the food counter. Over here were windows and booths for people to sit at. And this is actually where that vent was. It's in my office, and this is where Dad stood in the 50s and cooked hamburgers, and my grandpa for that matter too. When we created the new store, what Grandpa calls the new store, I call it the old store, we actually had a grill, so we had hot food at that point. So the store went on through the 50s and the mid-60s quite successfully. In the 60s, it was actually booming because you had all the construction projects. You had Hanford going on, you had I-90 being built, and you had the dams going in. Then in 1965, everything pretty much changed because I-90 opened up, and now all the business that we relied on driving by on Highway 10 disappeared to the freeway. At that point, a decision had to be made about what Jerrol's was going to do. And Grandpa and Dad came together and decided we would become a university bookstore. And so we sold to the same customers, we just sold them different products. Instead of coffee and food, we ended up selling them textbooks and office supplies. In 1965 is when we made that change. You can see here pictures of Dad with a gentleman, we don't know his name, in that time period in the late 60s. Here's a picture of Dad standing outside the store. He's right by the entrance, and you'll notice that this bulletin board that's up there, I remember that in the 80s. We actually have a couple of those boards. These are two of the boards that made up that bulletin board, and you can see all of the staples and the thumbtacks and so forth that went into it. Door there beside Dad. That door was literally right here. And you'll notice that enough people walked through that door to wear a hole in our floor. The registers at one time were located right here. And you can see again how many people had walked through. They actually wore through the tiles. In the 80s, I stood on the other side of that counter and helped people, sold them cigarettes and whatnot. Some of the other interesting things to look at in the what I call the old store, you can see the roof. It's what Larry Mayberry likes to call the bowling alley ceiling. He actually nailed these together, but they're just 2x4s, end on end. And you'll notice the beams. Right here is where the old store ended. And you can even see, and again, you're welcome to come peek and take a look at this. It's in our break room. And again, you can come back here, it's okay. Right here is where that old store ended. And I didn't even realize this for the longest time that that's what this was, but it was the end of the store. And kind of a cool thing, we noticed just the other day, this is my grandfather's handwriting. And these are the breakers for the coffee makers and whatnot in the 1950s. This is where the beams ended. When Grandpa decided to add on, he simply put in a post and added the beams. So this would have been the second edition. Second edition, the first edition. This became the second edition. And again, you had the beams ending. He added another one. And here he had a different type of ceiling. No doubt it was something that he found on sale. Originally, the roof was very flat. In fact, it was perfectly flat. And we had tons of leaks. Many of us remember every time it rained, we used to have to take buckets and we'd just walk around the store and put them under drips. We'd hand them out to our customers and they were just used to setting them around wherever we needed to. Well, at one point, Grandpa decided he thought if he could lift the roof up, it would make sort of a bell curve and sort of get rid of that. So literally, he put in screw jacks underneath each one of these beams, and that's why these blocks are here. He just jacked up the roof and put under blocks. Unfortunately, it didn't work, And so we ended up putting on the metal roof, and then eventually we put on the membrane roof that you see today, and there are no more leaks. The flooring is also a very interesting story. This style of tile was used by Grandpa where he had food, because he wanted it to be very clean and easy to maintain. So when Grandpa put on the first edition, he used tiles like this that came from Chicago on the train, is the family story. And it was because he never intended to have food down here. And you can actually see on the floor how they sat here for so long they etched themselves in. There's a mall over by the UW in Seattle that has this same look to it, but it was stained in. Down here he went to a completely different flooring for reasons I have no idea. And then actually the third addition to these buildings happened in the 80s when Dad added on this 5,000 square feet, and he went with the raw concrete floor. Thanks for joining our video tour. We do have a book on our history if you're interested. It's thebook.jerrolls.com. And we're always interested in your comments. You can email me directly. You can email me directly, Rolf, R-O-L-F, @jerrolls.com. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to hear whether you are a customer or used to work here. All of that stuff is fascinating, and we'd love to capture it. Thank you.